Hi, best friends, and welcome back to Living Inspired with Autism. I'm your host, Antoinette, and I am autism parent life coach, and I'm also mom to my own autistic child, Max. This is the show for parents who are raising autistic children and who also want to remember that they are human beings with lives and dreams and desires and emotions, relationships, bodies, homes, and hearts that need care too. Today, I want to talk to you about change. And more specifically, I want to talk to you about having compassion for yourself in the middle of change. We've had huge change in our lives because we have moved house. So I'm talking about having compassion for yourself right now, not after change or after the house is perfect or your routine is settled or you've got your energy back, but right here in the messy middle of it. Because I think so many of us wait until life feels neat again before we allow ourselves to live. We wait until we are coping beautifully before we give ourselves credit. We wait until we are back to normal before we allow ourselves to feel proud. And that, my friends, is just backwards. The moment that you need compassion the most is usually the moment we are least likely to give it to ourselves. So today's episode is for you if you are going through change. Maybe you have moved house like I have. Maybe your kiddo has gone back to school after the holidays and everything feels just a little wobbly. Maybe you've gone back to work and your brain is still somewhere between holiday mode and please don't ask me to make another decision yet. Maybe your home feels chaotic like mine does. Maybe your routine has been interrupted or your kiddo is really struggling with transition. Or maybe you're also just physically tired, emotionally tired, people tired, or just plain tired. This episode is for you because I want to remind you that change takes energy. Even beautiful, exciting change, even change that you really want, it still takes energy and you are allowed to be tired. So we have moved house. And there is so much about this move that has been really wonderful. We love our new location. We are closer to Max's school, which is really amazing. And the house has a pool and a hot tub, which is basically Max's version of winning the lottery because he loves water. So for him, the house has some very exciting things about it. And at the same time, it's been challenging, and both can be true. You can love a change, still be exhausted by it. You can be grateful and still feel overwhelmed. You can know that you made the right decision and still have moments where you think, what on earth have we done? You can be excited and still need a nap. Those things don't cancel each other out. They're all part of being a human being in transition. So our new house is older than the house that we were in before. So there are a lot of adjustments. I mean, you know what it's like. Every house has its own personality. Some houses are smooth and shiny and everything works exactly as expected. And some houses are a little bit more like, welcome, darling. Here are these 10 quirks you didn't know about before you moved in. So there are things to figure out and lots of boxes to unpack, and there are places for things to find. There are little repairs and adjustments. And where does this go? And why doesn't that cupboard door close properly? And where are the scissors? And why do we own 6 versions of this thing? And who packed the thing that we need right now? And on top of all of that, on top of the house, there is Max. Now, Max was excited. He really was, because the pool and the hot tub are like a very big deal. But even when change is exciting for our kids, it can still be dysregulating. And I think this is so important for us as parents to understand. Excitement is still activation in the nervous system. It still requires processing. It can still be overwhelming. And for an autistic child, a new environment means new sounds, new smells, new light, new rooms, new routes, new expectations and patterns, just new everything. So when there is joy, there can also be challenge. And then we, as parents, we are holding all of that. We are trying to unpack the kitchen and also watching for regulation and making sure that our kiddo feels safe. And then there's school, because the paperwork for the transport change has not been processed yet. So we are driving Max to school ourselves. And the school district is really slow about it. So now our routine has changed again. And this is where the part of our lives where it can feel like a lot. It feels like there are so many open loops. And that's what change is, a lot of open loops. Now, for me, it's boxes that are not unpacked. There are forms that we need to process. Maybe it's emails that you need to answer and schedules that aren't settled yet. And when you are a doer, like Mark and I are, my husband and I, open loops can feel very uncomfortable, because doers want to do. We want to finish, we want to sort out, we want the house done. We want to wake up one morning and everything is done. But change does not usually work like that. Change isn't this neat little checklist. Change is more like a cupboard full of Tupperware lids. You think you've matched everything, and then somehow there are still 3 lids that just don't belong to anything. And this is where compassion becomes essential. Because without compassion, your brain will start turning a normal transition into a personal failure. It's going to say things like, you should be further along by now. You should have unpacked more. You should have more energy or be back to normal. You shouldn't feel so disconnected. You should be communicating with your people like I'm feeling right now. You should have everything under control. But what if nothing has gone wrong? What if you are behind? You're just simply in the middle of change. What if your exhaustion makes sense? What if snow starts to make sense? What if your kiddo's wobble makes sense? What if your house taking time to come together is not a problem? What if this is the part where you aren't meant to go slowly? Now, I've noticed through this move that I have had to remind myself over and over again, nothing needs to be done right away. Now, is that true? Technically, yes. Does my brain believe it automatically? No, not always. My brain looks around and says, excuse me, there are boxes. We can't rest while there's still boxes existing. And maybe your brain does this too. Maybe it looks at the laundry or work messages or admin or clutter and says, we've got to fix this immediately. But urgency is not always truth. Some urgency is just anxiety wearing a little whistle around its neck. It starts bossing everyone around. Move faster, do more, hurry up. Why are you sitting down? Why are you tired? Why isn't this finished? And when you're already tired, that urgency does not help you to perform better. In actual fact, it drains you. So the work becomes learning to speak to yourself differently. Of course I'm tired. We just moved. Of course Max is adjusting. This is a big change. Of course the house feels unfinished. We haven't been here long. Of course I feel disconnected. My capacity has been going into the moon. So that phrase, of course, is so powerful because it immediately brings compassion into the room. Of course this feels hard. Of course I need rest. We often deny ourselves the obvious. We expect ourselves to go through major life changes and then operate as if nothing has happened. But your body knows. Your brain knows. Your nervous system knows. Your child knows. So I want to talk about the emotional side of change for a moment. Because when we go through change, especially as parents, we often focus on the practical pieces. But underneath the logistics, there is an emotional layer. Now for me, one of those things is I've been feeling a little disconnected from you, my people. And I want to be honest about that because I love this community. I love speaking to you. I love sharing with you. I love feeling connected to the parents who listen to this podcast and who are doing their own brave, beautiful work in their lives. And with all this change, I have not felt as connected. I still care, obviously. I haven't forgotten you. I still have passion for this work, but my capacity has been going somewhere else for a while. And that is important. Sometimes disconnection doesn't mean that something is wrong. Sometimes it just means that your energy is being used for survival or adjustment or transition and regulation. And this applies to so many areas of life. Because you may feel disconnected from work or your partner. Or your friends or your goals or from yourself. And immediately your brain might go into panic. But you are just in a season where your energy has been rerouted. Because usually energy goes into creativity, connection, exercise, planning, dreaming, working, socializing. But during change, the sign comes up and says, energy temporarily diverted to transition. And that is okay. It doesn't mean that you're never going to feel like yourself again. It means that you just need to give yourself time to come back. And you do come back. Sometimes it's a bit slower than you'd like. Just one normal morning at a time, one cup of coffee in a less chaotic space. One school run that feels a little easier. One room that feels a little bit more like home. One breath where you think, okay, we're getting there. Not there yet, but we're getting there. Now, maybe you are listening and thinking, well, I haven't really moved house, but I know exactly what you mean. Maybe you started back at work after the holidays and you're feeling a little slow. You thought you'd come back all refreshed and ready to go, but instead your brain feels like it is walking through porridge. You open your laptop and you're just staring at the screen. You look at your calendar and you wonder, who the hell created this life? You know what needs to be done, but your momentum is missing. It has packed itself in a box somewhere and it's not labeled. This happens. Momentum isn't a switch. It's not always instant. Momentum is built. After a break, after a move, after a stressful season, after illness, after school holidays, after a big family event, it can take time to get going again. And the mistake many of us make is that we shame ourselves into action. But shame is a terrible coach. Shame might get you moving for a short while, but it doesn't create sustainable strength. What does? Compassion does. Compassion says, let's just choose one thing. Let's just start where we are. So, how do we do this? How do we have compassion for ourselves in the middle of change? So I want to give you a few things to think about. The first is to name what is happening. Now, it sounds really simple, but it matters. You can say to yourself, as I did here, I am in transition. That's it. That sentence has no drama in it. It gives your brain context, and that context creates calm. And if your kiddo is dysregulated after a change, you probably don't look at them and say, this is just ridiculous. Why aren't you not adjusted perfectly yet? You understand that their system is processing something new. What if you offered yourself the same understanding? What if you said, my system is processing something new too? Because it is. The second thing is to lower the pressure without lowering your standards. Now, this is important for all the doers out there, because sometimes when I say nothing needs to be done right away, the doer brain hears, so we're just going to live in chaos forever. No. This is not what we're saying. We're not giving up. We're just simply removing the unnecessary panic. You can still do the things, but you don't have to do it with a whip in your hand. You can do it with patience. And that counts, my friend. It really counts. The third thing is to stop making tiredness mean there's something bad about you. Tiredness is information. It's not a character flaw. Being physically and emotionally drained after a move does not mean that you are weak. It just means that you are spending energy, a lot of energy. And parents of autistic children are often spending energy in ways that other people don't see. You're not just doing the practical things. You are also making sure your kiddo is okay. You're anticipating their needs. You're preparing them for the transition. You're managing your own emotions. You're managing the environment. You're explaining things. That is a lot of invisible work. So when you're tired, please don't insult yourself on top of it. And this brings me to a deeper coaching piece. Change often reveals our expectations of ourselves. We think we should, ... be ready. Think our child should adjust because the change is positive. We should get back into work easily. We should be able to do everything. But where did those expectations come from? Who decided the timeline? Who decided how long adjustment is allowed to take? This is where we need to be very careful, because unrealistic expectations create unnecessary suffering. Now, the physical things are the real challenges, but then what we do is we add a second layer. I should ... be handling this better. Now, that second layer is what creates the pain. So the invitation today is to remove that second layer. Let the challenge be challenging without attacking yourself or finding it challenging. Let tired be tired. Let change be change. Let your child need what they need. Let your energy return when it wants to. This doesn't mean that you are just going to become passive. It means you become kind to yourself. Kindness is intelligent. Kindness helps you stay connected to your child, to your partner, and to yourself. So if you're listening to this and you can feel how much pressure you've been putting on yourself, this is exactly the kind of work that we do in one-to-one coaching. Because sometimes we need someone on the outside of your life to help you see the thoughts that are making everything even more challenging. So if you book a consult with me, we look at what's going on in your real life. The version with all the things, with school, with dysregulation, with the strain in your relationship, the guilt, the overwhelm, the dreams that you still have yourself, and the person, the human being underneath it all, who is still in there. And we create a way forward that feels doable and grounded and supportive and aligned with who you want to be. So if this episode is speaking to you, I want to invite you to book a consult to work with me one-on-one. Listen, you don't have to wait until you are falling apart to get the support. You can get support now while you're building the next version of your life. Okay, so let's get back to momentum, because I think this is going to be helpful for those of you who feel a bit slow right now. When you are rebuilding your momentum, please don't start with the biggest, hardest thing. Start with a tiny win, because your brain needs a little bit of evidence. It might mean clearing one surface. It might mean answering one email, making one phone call, taking that one walk, having one connected moment with your kiddo, sitting for 5 minutes with your coffee, and not criticizing yourself. Tiny wins aren't silly. They are how you begin again. And especially for us parents, because our lives are often interrupted. You may have planned a beautiful day, and then your kiddo has a hard morning. Maybe you have work time schedule, and then you get an unexpected phone call. You have a plan to unpack, and then everybody needs food. So the skill is not how do I create a life with no interruptions. The skill is how do I return without drama? How do I return to what matters? This is a powerful question. I want to give you a little practice for this week. Very simple. So at the beginning of each day, just ask yourself, what actually needs to be done today? Not what could be done or what would be nice to have done, and not what your anxious brain is screaming about. What actually needs to be done today? And then what can wait? That extra box can wait. The big life overhaul can wait. The 10-step morning routine can wait. The pressure to be fully back can wait. And then what would support me today? And this is a question so many parents forget to ask. We ask what our child needs, or what work needs, or what our partner needs. But what would support me today? Maybe it's just 10 minutes alone, or ordering food in instead of cooking, asking for help. Maybe it's going to bed a little earlier. That is a practice. What needs to be done? What can wait? What would support me? Simple. Not always easy, but simple. So as we begin to wrap up, I just want to leave you with this. You are a human being. Your kiddo is a human being. So when life changes, allow there to be a settling period. Allow things to feel unfinished. Allow your energy to be lower. Allow your child to need extra support. Allow yourself to miss the old, even while loving the new. Allow yourself to feel disconnected, and then just gently reconnect. Allow momentum to return gradually. You don't have to force your way back into your life. Just one small step. And I promise you, things will start to settle. And one day, without noticing exactly when it happened, you'll realize that the new thing no longer feels so new. It feels like home. So this week, be kind to yourself, especially if you're starting again. And if you would like help learning how to support yourself in this way, I would love to work with you one-on-one. So book a consult with me and let's look at what's happening in your life. What feels heavy? What needs to shift? And how you can begin to lead yourself with more calm, more compassion, and more strength. Because you deserve support. Thank you for being here with me today. And I have this feeling connected to you. And it feels lovely to be back in this conversation with you again. I will speak to you next week, everyone. Bye.